Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart. Welcome to another edition of Breaking News for this Sunday, the 16th day of June, 2024. And in the last several hours, a number of very important stories have come across the wire, which we need to talk about and deal with. Two of extreme importance. And let's get to them right away. First, number one, Hezbollah unveils Red Beret Brigade, threatens a Golan invasion. New provocative video showcases Islamic fighters ready to break through borders and invade strategic heights, signaling war escalation. In a provocative display, Hezbollah has released a video showcasing fighters donning red berets, a move interpreted by many as a signal of impending conflict. The video, which has quickly gained traction across various media platforms, features approximately 1,500 well-armed and disciplined men raising alarms in both Israel and the broader international community. Now, what about these symbolic red berets? The introduction of red berets marks a significant shift in Hezbollah's visual and psychological warfare tactics. Historically, Hezbollah has favored a more subdued and conventional military appearance. The red beret, however, carries with it connotations of elite status and readiness for combat. Analysts suggest that this new attire is intended to intimidate and signify a departure from mere guerrilla tactics to more organized and aggressive operations. And now, how about the threats to the Golan Heights? Well, the video was accompanied by bold threats from Hezbollah leaders vowing to invade the Golan Heights. This area, of course, is a strategic plateau bordering Israel, Syria, and Lebanon, and has long been a flashpoint in regional tensions. Hezbollah's Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah declared, "Our forces are ready and prepared. We will reclaim every inch of the Golan Heights from the Zionist enemy." Now, how about the military and political reactions from Israel? Israel's response has been swift and unequivocal. The IDF spokesman, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, stated, "We are aware of Hezbollah's recent threats and are closely monitoring the situation. The IDF is fully prepared to defend our sovereignty and ensure the safety of our citizens." Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant echoed these sentiments, emphasizing that any attempt to breach our borders will be met with overwhelming force. Well, let's hope that's true, because if you recall, we had a story a while back that there was a survey done. The military did their own survey. In fact, it was right before this, what happened on October 7th with Hamas in Gaza. And they said if an invasion took place in Israel, the place where they're most vulnerable is the north with Hezbollah. They didn't even mention the south and Gaza, but Hezbollah in the north, they said we wouldn't be able to reach the north soon enough. There would be, the towns there would be overrun, and we're just not prepared. Now, what's interesting, of course, the towns are deserted because of the fighting that's been going on, the bombing and the rockets going over, the ones on the border, Kiryat Shmona and Metula, and some of the others. But this is a realistic possibility. This is not something we should take lightly. The fact that they are threatening this and saber rattling. And again, if something like this happens, it's going to be coordinated, not only with Hezbollah and Iran, who's running the show, but also with the Houthis in Yemen, with the Islamic Jihad there, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is also in Syria and in Gaza, and other terrorist groups in Iraq that could do a united front against Israel. And again, not to mention Iran itself doing something else. So this is serious stuff. So we'll keep an eye on this. And again, so the takeaway of this, it's Israel being threatened again, big time from the north. That's why Ben-Gvir the other day said, to deal with Hezbollah, we don't need these little strategic strikes, these small little ones. You've got to use overwhelming force. Well, we will see. We will see what happens. All right. On a story we did earlier today about the daily pauses in fighting to secure Gaza, two ministers blast this delusional daily pauses in fighting to secure the aid to Gaza. Netanyahu criticized the move, but the IDF says it's in line with his instructions. Ben-Gvir claims decisions contrary to the cabinet policy, and Smotrich said aid mostly ends up in Hamas's hands, which is true. Two ministers on Sunday decried a decision by the military to implement a daily pause in military activity along a road in the southern Gaza Strip to enable aid deliveries, describing the measure as foolish and delusional. Although the Israeli Defense Force has frequently announced tactical pauses since October 7th for several hours in various neighborhoods across the Strip for Palestinians to receive and distribute aid, The latest move marked a more significant daily halt in military activity for more hours than usual and across a wider area. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said in his statement that whoever decided on such a policy is a fool who should not remain in his position. Unfortunately, this move has not been brought before the cabinet and is contrary to its decisions. It's time to get out of the outdated pre-October 7th security concept and stop the crazy and delusional approach that only brings us more dead and fallen, the statement read. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich attacked the IDF's delusional announcements, complaining that the humanitarian aid that continues to reach Hamas keeps it in power and may pour the achievements of the war down the drain. The manner in which this humanitarian effort in the Gaza Strip is being managed, in the framework of which the aid largely goes to Hamas and helps it to retain civilian control of the Strip, in direct contradiction to the goals of the war, has been bad throughout the last few months, he claimed, adding that he has repeatedly warned that this is one of the reasons for the continuation of the war and the resounding strategic failure of the war effort. Now, we talked about that this morning in our first edition of Breaking News, how idiotic this seems to be. And we heard that Netanyahu and the defense minister Gallant were surprised by this. They didn't even know this. And like we said, this is not the way to put the end to a war, not the way to win a war, because all it does is feed the enemy. And this is what's taking place with this humanitarian aid. And as we also talked about, Israel is the only country in history that we know of that has helped the enemy more out to win a war than helping themselves out, particularly in Gaza, making sure the Gazan citizens are okay, not that making that sure that their own soldiers are okay when they're fighting Hamas in Gaza. So we will see. Headline number 3, Israel will not commit to end the war before the release of hostages. Let's hope they stick with this. A senior Israeli official said on Sunday that Israel would not commit to ending the war before the release of hostages in the first and second phases of a proposed ceasefire deal approved by the UN Security Council. Hamas has introduced numerous amendments to the proposal initially presented by U.S. President Joe Biden late last month, which Jerusalem interprets as an effective rejection. Hamas has made substantial changes to dozens of items in the outline, the official said. Well, yes, they have. But the headline today is, remember, Hania said, well, we're ready to deal. We're ready to do a ceasefire. We're ready to follow through with all of this. So now it's the ball's in Israel's court. And what did they do? They didn't accept Biden's proposal. They presented their own, which basically said Israel needs to get out of Gaza. They'll have 1 week to get out of Gaza. And there'll be a written agreement from not only the U.S., but also Turkey, Russia, and China showing that Israel will not go back in, and that it would be, against the law for them to do that once they sign that agreement. And only then they'll start thinking about releasing the hostages. Well, again, that is not something that's even a starter for Israel, but we will see. Stranger things have happened. Now, this fourth headline is the one that's probably the scariest of all, and it's something really worth thinking about and praying about. It's a question. The headline reads, can Israel strike Iran successfully? Listen to this. Even if Israel had the heaviest bunker-busting bombs, it would be difficult to deliver them to its target. According to estimates, Israel may be able to modernize F-15s to carry the GBU-57 bombs along with additional fuel and munitions. This is a technically complex task, but sometimes even the impossible gets done. All right, around 1,500 kilometers or 930 miles, more or less, separate Israel from the sites of Iran's nuclear program. These facilities are scattered across the distant enemy nation, fortified and protected. The International Atomic Energy Agency warned in late May that Iran possesses enough material to produce at least 3 nuclear warheads. On the other hand, senior Israeli officials assert that the IDF knows how to deal with this threat. The claim that Israel is capable of preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons has been heard for many years, including from the country's prime ministers. A big clock is ticking over us, said Prime Minister Menachem Begin in June 1981 during the cabinet meeting that approved the destruction of Iraq's nuclear reactor. Even today, a big clock is ticking over us. Military experts estimate that in recent years, the Israeli Air Force has been training for long-range missions, among other things, to prepare for traversing the vast distance. But from a technical and operational standpoint, it's unclear whether an effective strike on the nuclear program is indeed a feasible mission. Destroying Iran's nuclear program requires simultaneously hitting numerous fortified sites an unparalleled complex challenge. Is there substance, the question is, to Israel's assertions? The question of whether it's possible remains relevant, as the Iranians are also preparing for the US presidential election. Now, here's where it becomes really, really interesting and very foreboding. In Tehran, they remember the tense relations with the Republican candidate Donald Trump during his presidency and understand that if he is elected, it may be, or not maybe, it will be more difficult for them to continue developing their nuclear program. Perhaps they will decide that now is the time to break out for the bomb. Experts estimate that the breakout time is a matter of just a few months or even weeks. If Tehran wants to present the next American president with a fait accompli, it may act now. Accordingly, if Israel wants to thwart the nuclear program, these very days could be the last opportunity. And this is true, and this is profound. We don't mean to scare you here, but it's highly possible that if Iran figures that Joe Biden's going to lose to Donald Trump, remember the last time Trump threatened to turn Iran into a cinder, and Iran backed off with the military might of the U.S. with what was going on in that part of the world. And they were scared of Trump. They did back off. Now, no one's scared of Biden. And they figure, we've only got a few months. If November comes around and Trump wins, he becomes president, it'd be very hard for us, at least the next 4 years, to do some type of attack against Israel. And on the other end, Israel realizes that, Biden wins, then they'll have to do something sooner rather than later. They'll get no help from the Americans whatsoever. And so both are between the proverbial rock and the hard place. Now, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if there's going to be a limited war, but there certainly seems likely one. Because as we've stressed over and over again, and we're going to talk more about this, that the coalition now that's surrounding Israel is not the one predicted in Ezekiel 38:39. This is a coalition now run by Iran. All these groups are basically groups that work with Iran. They're Iran's confederates there. Iran is the country in charge of both Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and all these different groups in Iraq, as well as the Houthis way down in Yemen. Now, according to Ezekiel 38, it's going to be Russia, the nation that runs this last day's invasion. And Iran is one of the nations called Persia there in Ezekiel 38 that's going to be part of the invading force, but they will not lead the charge. So leading the charge now is Iran. So there may be, and we've talked about this for years, possibly a limited nuclear war, or not, maybe not necessarily nuclear war, but a limited regional war that brings Israel and Iran into combating, which would, would cause a whole chaos in the entire world, but it would change the landscape there in the Middle East for a while and possibly eventually allow the stage setting for Russia to come in as not only the good guy, but sort of the country that helps out settle everything. And at the same time being the country which will lead the invasion at the end, fooling Israel to thinking they have a peace partner in Russia, which they still unfortunately do. So we don't know what's going to happen, but we know this. Every day gets dicier and dicier. Now, for an explanation of what the Bible does say about the time of the end, please see our book, 25 Signs We're Near the End. It's under the heading of Bible Prophecy on our website, Educating Our World. It's a free download. We have 12 books on Bible prophecy there for free. We have 65 total books on 11 other subjects. Everything is free. We don't charge you anything. We don't want your name, address, or anything like that. We just want you to take advantage of the material, because it's important for us to understand what the Bible says is going to happen at the time of the end. And when we know what it says, we know that there are blue skies ahead for this world, because Jesus Christ will return and his kingdom will come to this planet. That's why we take heart, even in the midst of all this terrible things that are going on right now. So continue to pray for Israel. They're in a very, very difficult situation right now. And pray for Christians to share the witness of Jesus Christ to the world, because that's the only power that we have, prayer and the word of God, to get us through. And remember, at the end of the day, if we're in Jesus Christ, we will win this war. We will win this battle, because we will be with him forever and ever and ever. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow again on another edition of Breaking News. As always, until then, may the Lord richly, richly bless.